Technology services. Oh.
Sorry, we got the personnel. Mic thing. So try.
In the room.
Hello?
but
Yeah,
not you
let's see.
first.
Miss Sundberg, can you hear us now? It's a bit.
Now I can
Okay.
sort of hear.
I think that may just be the nature of the ambient.
We
Microphone.
tried to project a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, I usually don't have a problem with that. I did get loudest in 8th grade superlatives.
Hold on,
It's my claim to fame.
real quick before we resume, just assume the recording missed all the discussion thus far. Probably.
But
Okay.
we can do it even faster.
We can do it
Second time
even faster.
Ciao.
Do we want to just summarize? We voted on the meeting minutes from the June 26, 2025 meeting. There were no edits and no votes against or abstentions. We then the motion was made by myself and seconded by Susan Cunningham. Unanimous vote. We then moved item 6 on the agenda, which is review of open questions from prior audits, up to the next item so that we can get to our lovely DHS staff who have joined us here today. And we were discussing some of the open questions that Mr. Weistat had provided on the housing grants audit, completed audit. And we were reviewing the open findings from the audit and the progress to date that DHS has accomplished.
And this is a semi-annual status report of these open audit recommendations that will be submitted to.
Yes, and I will do a deeper dive of that later on as well for the other audit, so, but you can. So
Continue where it was. So email server. So we found out that it cannot, if we have an encrypted email, we can send out encrypted emails, but we cannot encrypt incoming emails. And so that doesn't get at the issue of having something being sent to us that's PII and then hanging out in an email box. So we have uploaded our SOPs as a workaround so that staff, after they upload into Yardi, they have to delete the email. And then our case aid goes in on the back end at the end of every month to make sure that all those emails, all that information has been uploaded and is out of the system. We are hoping, we would love to be able to turn on the applicant portal in Yardi. But because Housing Grants is a local program and Yardi is built out for like housing choice voucher programs, they would have to create a customizable add-on for us, which requires an amendment. And it would require additional funding. I don't know how much funding, but just to give you an idea of how long the amendment process and then the development can take, we did update recently, did an amendment through Yardi to add our youth aging out of foster care cohort into the system so we could track those separately. And that took over a year for Yardi to implement. So as it stands now, we're doing this workaround. We would hope that we can get to be, virtual except for individuals that need assistance. And then this wouldn't be an issue moving forward. Letters with CAO, there was a finding that some of the letters were not consistent. It had old language. This program's been around forever. And so, yes, we sent the letters to the CAO in final version because there had been back and forth. They have had them since August 21st. So they are in the CAO's court for final approval. And then we will implement them and push those out so that staff know these are the approved templates that we're going to use moving forward for all different types of case decisions as they relate to housing grants.
Brooke, do you feel that the county attorney's office is giving you timely service? I mean, I know we're without a chief county attorney, but I mean, is that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we haven't had, we have a lot of things that we take to the county attorney's office. So yeah, we hear back from them in a reasonable amount of time.
Thank you.
And there has been back and forth. So it's not like we sent it and it's just been crickets. Yep. And then the last finding was that I can't even explain this one because it's all IT stuff, but something about there needed to be a
The SOC report.
Thank you.
The-
Thank you, Wayne. We have completed it. Our ISB team and DHS took care of that one for me. So
What is it that you completed?
A SOC type
a
2 audit
SOC
report.
type 2.
So the Systems Organizations Control Report, so it's where Yardi, the tool that she just mentioned, that Brooke just mentioned, where outside auditors come in to audit the Yardi system and they look at a number of controls that the system is, that they're responsible for. And that audit report gives some assurance to the extent of the operating design and operating effectiveness of the system. So reviewing this report, whenever you have a cloud-based or a SaaS type provider, and they have a, instead of me coming in or them getting bombarded by hundreds of auditors, they have an audit firm come in to issue an opinion on the effectiveness of the design and operating effectiveness of controls. And the issue here was for making sure that someone is taking a look at that annual report to make sure there are no findings in there that would impact the system.
So they have a documented process by which they're doing that yearly moving forward, from what I understand. And then other than that, there was another finding, but it wasn't an actual finding, it was just a suggestion that we have a grant review control checklist so that anyone looking at a file can kind of see, you know, did we get all the right documents, et cetera, from a QA perspective, and we have implemented that as well. So we got these recommendations, in the spring, most of them are done, except for the one that's pending because we're waiting on the amendment to the Affordable Housing Master Plan to get pushed out. And then once it's live, we'll be good to go for Wayne to come back out.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
So I think my last question on this is, Mr. Manager, now that you're in probably the embryonic stages of planning the fiscal 27 budget,
2027.
right, 2027 budget, are we thinking about additional resources for this component or just?
It's too early to say, Mr. Vice.
Okay.
But can I follow up on the Yardi question?
Yes.
So it sounds like it would take a long time to work with them. Would it save us a lot of time on the back end if we tackled that at some point?
Yes.
And do we have any idea of the dollar figure for it?
I don't think so. I can follow up with Nicole.
Yeah.
I have to see if she's had any sort of just ballpark conversations, but I do not think we've gotten any sort of formal quote yet. We would love to turn on that feature.
Yeah.
But anything on the local side has to be built out, customized.
And is there anything we could coast on other providers, like for the larger CAF owners, which is probably 90 times? You just do anything in there?
There's the landlord portal, but we would still need to turn it on the local side as well. So
Gotcha.
I don't know. At this point in time, we would love to have better technology to make our jobs easier.
Yeah, yeah. So, and we talked about it briefly in budget. I think there was a number thrown out. Who knows whether it was a real number or not, but could we ask that at least that proposal and number come back even in a very challenging operating budget year? Because I think it does then enable you to save money
Yes.
and time and also have better service.
Sure.
Pretty much down the road. And I suspect it would save a lot of time and agony for the landlords as well. So there might be some joint
100%.
interest and shared.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. And we have our housing grants navigator position, which we got this fiscal year, that we were hoping, can work with residents too, who might need more technical assistance with that portal. But yes, it would be wonderful.
Any further questions on the completed housing grant audit?
You good? You good?
All right, thank
Wow.
you. Thank you to our DHS staff for joining us.
John, you're good, because you had some other questions
Yeah, I didn't go back to the
These are hypotheticals.
okay.
on,
it was,
The nonprofit follow-up.
we do have a nonprofit audit follow-up.
Okay,
Would you like to hear that?
please.
Okay. Well,
I always like to hear, Anita, what you have to say.
oh, thank you so much. We had originally had as presumed to have an audit conducted on nonprofit funding under a previous auditor, county auditor, but it wasn't fully completed. I did provide information to Mr. Scott as to what had transpired since then. And basically, just to give you an overview, there was what should I say, a significant number of county board awards that were, if you might remember this, that were legacy grants, we called them contracts, to nonprofits in Arlington that originated somewhere between 1970s and 1980s. And that was the way in which the mom and pop nonprofits that came to life in Arlington, like the Food Assistance Center, like ACE Band, were funded. The folks would go to the county board would say, yes, you could have this or you could have that. That system perpetuated for much longer than it should have, for various decades, and became a big concern for county board members because it was basically sort of a system of coming to ask for money without any sort of data and systematized methodology. So that's what we took, that's what we decided to look at, and all of those awards basically were, they were put into two different buckets. One bucket became and we defunded the nonprofits, became part of the RACE NOFA, the Racial Equity Notice of Funding Availability, in its first year of inception, and I think it's in its third year now. The other bucket was either competitively contracted out through RFPs or designated as a sole source. Actually, there was only one sole source that came out of it. Out of the 117 contracts that the Department of Human Services has, there are only 5 sole source contracts. And they are for different reasons, contracts with entities that are unique in what they provide in Arlington, and there aren't really alternatives. So AFAC, for example, has a sole source contract. There's only one large-scale food assistance center in Arlington that has the capacity to distribute basically 30,000 meals per month, something like that. It's gone up. Another one is to the Northern Virginia Dental Clinic, which is a regional contract or regional program, which Alexandria and Fairfax also used to contribute to. And it gives us a few slots for dentist assistants that we send our clients to. The fourth is the Mary Marshall Assisted Living, which, as you know, they own the building. And so there's not really an opportunity to have an alternative provider. And the fifth is the Genoa Pharmacy, which also built out a pharmacy on our Sequoia campus and runs the pharmacy, and we have a contract with them. And that's it. So we went through this process 3 years ago with the county manager's assistance and the assistance of the chief racial equity officer at the time. Katie Crystal was the board representative that looked into the move from county board awards to the Race NOFA. United Way was brought in as a technical assistance resource. There was a community group that was assembled of community leaders as well as people from DHS. And there was broad conversation in the community as to how to construct the Race NOFA, the criteria, the evaluation, the awards, and hence that transpired. And that is basically the
Um,
story.
Start with Mr. Bystad.
Thanks, Ms. Coffey. Ms. Friedman, you mentioned AFAC, the Northern Virginia Dental Clinic, Mary Marshall, and the pharmacy. What did,
Oh, yeah, it was only 4. Why did I say 5? It should have been 4.
okay. And Mark Schwartz, remind me, is this the pharmacy function that used to be peopled by county staff directly?
No, no. This is an actual commercial pharmacy where our patients, our clients from the
Okay.
Community Services Board,
Right.
mental health, substance use, go to fill their prescriptions.
Maybe, am I thinking of maybe the lab?
You're thinking of the lab.
Yeah, we just continued, yeah.
Okay.
That was discontinued.
Okay, great. And I'm glad you mentioned Katie Crystal because I really think that it was her idea, her concept of
Yeah.
of saying, why don't we look at a new, more regular, systematized, comprehensive, holistic,
Right.
format for doing these awards, not unlike AHIF for the
Right.
Affordable Housing Investment Fund, which we do every year. So I really, applaud the outcome of this and delighted to hear your follow-up findings. Thank you. And do you believe it? I mean, it's working pretty well?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, what needed to be competitively bid was competitively bid and, it cost a lot more money in the end. Mark knows that. Because when you had a board award, it was sort of a little bit like patronage, you know what I mean? This little.
I don't know. John was on the board at the time, maybe.
No, but
But
actually,
there were
I
flat
like-
costs and.
But, you,
So why does
But to
it
run it-
cost a lot,
Well,
quite a lot more money?
because we were stuck, we were fixed with a certain budget. We couldn't really say, yes, based on what you're doing, we'll give you X more money without coming back to the board to say, give us X more money. And so they basically had to go directly, and then it all depended on what they felt they were able to ask for,
I think a lot of things,
was,
they got, if an organization got $200,000 the first year, then they just got $200,000
Forever.
forward
It
and
was
forward.
perpetuated.
Salaries
But,
increase.
right, but then everything cost increased, and so when
Right.
we went through the bid process, nonprofits were able to actually say, here's what it costs today
Right.
to do this work, which is much more than whatever we were doing, but because we had deemed this a
Yeah.
competitive, they are able to bring forward to us what their
What the true
actual
cost.
business, model is.
Yeah, the bottom line is if we're contracting for services, we do need to pay the cost of those services. So we
Right.
can heat it, but we need to have it be
Right.
transparent, and that was what.
much more transparent and fair.
Right, exactly.
And sustainable for the nonprofit partners.
So every contract that we put out to bid is now completed and in place, correct?
There was no invitations to bid in the spreadsheet that Corey sent us,
No.
so I
Okay,
think,
so they're all
Yeah,
completed.
they're all-
Yeah.
Good. I know that was
It
a
passed.
long process.
Yeah, we did have one hiccup, but New Hope Housing, which was awarded for the management and oversight of the RPC shelter, their organization basically imploded. Their executive director was fired, and then we had to
we had to do an emergency
emergency
purchase.
purchase to award those funds
And
to a new provider.
And we are gonna
Yeah.
bid that out again this year. That RFP is in the final stages. with Folks on my team, and then it'll go to purchasing to bid that out so it can become competitive. We had to pivot and quickly, so.
And so Anita and Wayne, I mean, to follow up on your transparency point for a second, all of these contracts are available for public review,
Oh,
right? I
of
mean,
course.
they're on the web
On the web.
but Maria, from a fiscal perspective, does Arlington Wallet pick up expenditures on an ongoing basis on these various contracts? Do you know offhand?
Arlington Wallet is not transaction based at this time.
Okay.
at the general ledger level, so you can't see, you wouldn't see this detail.
Okay,
Numbers are in there, but not.
right, okay. Well, I'll follow up with you on that. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's a record. First audit, the happiest customer.
Out of here,
And
Yeah.
coming back twice.
Thank you.
Back to you, I think.
Okay, yes, so the next item. Close out that. So the next item on the agenda is a review and approval of the electronic meeting attendance policy. So this was first submitted to the audit committee last September. And this is a meeting attendance policy that is governed and set up by the state of Virginia. And their policy is reviewed and updated each July of every year. So the policy that you have in your material has not been changed by the state. So it's the same as you saw last year. So what this is on the agenda is just to renew the committee approval unless you have any additional changes to the meeting attendance policy. So the recommendation here is just, unless you have any other changes, is to adopt your approval on this policy.
I have some changes and questions.
You want to start with questions or changes?
Well, I'll just go in order. So item 3 talks about allowing the public to hear members. Should that also include ASL's interpreter or closed caption, since this is all virtual?
Question?
That's a question I'm gonna have to take to Mason. Since this is a state policy, I would have to take that back to Mason if we're gonna make any changes to see how we would proceed with making changes. The guidance that he shared with me was that we could make changes that would make it more stringent, but we can't take anything out. So I would have to take that back to him to see how we.
Well, that would be more inclusive.
Yeah, I think it would be more.
I don't think it would violate the stringency question.
Okay,
I think it would potentially violate the ADA if we don't do it. And it's all virtual.
I think the captioning is pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think since you mentioned that this is mostly state determined, some of this isn't relevant. I do have a question about. I have a question to the circumstance that this is on now the remote participation section. So separate from the virtual. Is there and this is probably just covered by the state, is there an option for when people are on work assignment out of the area, out of the 60-mile limit? Because that's not covered in here. And it would tend to limit people who are working still from participating as members of the committee members of the committee primarily, since this is about the remote participation. So,
My understanding of the bills and amendments that have been attempted in the General Assembly is that they are still very much erring on the side of pushing in person and exemptions for even things like caregiving responsibilities or things that I would think we all would agree are reasonable reasons to participate online have not yet been accepted in the Virginia code. And so I think that is another thing we can definitely check with Mason on. Delegate Elizabeth. Yeah. Delegate Elizabeth Bennett Parker has been a real leader in trying to create more expansive remote participation rules so that you can accommodate, all kinds of different reasons, and it creates more equitable participation because you have to be somewhere for work or to take care of a kid or whatever, you know, it doesn't mean you can't still participate in a committee. But my understanding is at this point, I think this reflects the language that the Commonwealth of Virginia has provided to us for remote participation.
And so that probably covers the item under number 3, which is principal residence being no more than 60 miles away. I mean, for our committee, that would violate the residence requirement, right?
Yeah.
So that's just, again, the language from the state.
There are other agencies like MBTA or MTC who have electeds who are conducting your enrichment in your General Assembly. If there was consideration for someone who was having to be at Kingston or a committee enrichment, they would have that combination to actually still participate in under that clause.
So basically, a lot of what's in here is not specific for us.
No.
It's just compliant.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the Code of Virginia just makes us, again, we adopted this policy last year, but currently the Code of Virginia says that all commissions and advisory groups and whatnot have to adopt on an annual basis, which I'm not sure what, frankly, the benefit of that is if we're not changing it, but that is not up to us.
The other, so on number 4, talks about essentially denying the request or disapproving, I guess. How is the notification to the person who makes the request happen? Because I don't see that covered in your name. I mean, I assume if I contacted you and said, you know, I can't make the meeting, can I have this exception? You would immediately tell me yes or no, but it is not spelled out in here that the person who makes the request gets to not, it just says in the minutes.
Right.
It will be mentioned. So it seems like
Question,
to
yeah,
be a little more complete,
right,
that piece of it should be.
okay,
Let's discuss to the chairs, permanent work force, if it becomes a concern,
yeah, yeah.
but not really seen in the actual document of the charter.
Other,
That was it, but I just feel like anything that's not spelled out, who notifies who and how they get notified is probably clarifying for a charter
yeah,
in particular. There should be clarification on all of any points that are like that.
yeah, I think those are fair discussion points. My recommendation at this point in time is that we adopt as is, take back to Mason some of these, your 3 points of question. My concern is if we don't readopt an electronic meeting policy, that we therefore, the default of the Code of Virginia is if you have not adopted an electronic meeting policy, then no one can participate electronically, which we do not want to happen. But that doesn't mean we can't come back and amend this either at our next meeting or January or thereafter once we get clarification on some of these questions. So if that feels okay to everyone, that would be my recommended course of action. Okay. Does anyone want to move adoption of our electronic meeting attendance policy? I'm fine to. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Great, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, that carries unanimously. And now I will pass it over to Mr. Smith.
Thank you. So this next item here is to discuss the audit committee charter and the annual meeting planner. So just as a little bit of background, we previously had one document which was set up as the county board charge, which previously covered both the audit committee and the county auditor. So as mentioned at the June meeting, Shirley and I wanted to do a deeper dive of this particular document to update it, I mean, for the annual requirement. But one of the other reviews that other things that we did is we thought that it would, we took a look at it and say, would it be better to separate the document into two pieces, one being an audit committee charter, and then a charter for the Office of County Auditor. So, and during that analysis, we thought that it would be better to split those two up because they're two very distinct roles. So what we have here and what you have in your materials would be just for the charter for the audit committee. In just a few minutes, we'll take up the charter for the Office of County Auditor. And within this particular document, what you'll see is a number of one, what we did is we pulled out the various audit committee roles and responsibilities, but we also just made some additions to this document. And also just as a little bit of background that we've shared in previous meetings, one of the things that we're really moving this role, the audit committee and the Office of County Auditor function towards is being in compliance with generally accepted government auditing standards as required by, as that was required by when it was the county board charge. So some of these changes, again, would just kind of move us in a direction of when we go under a peer review that we would be, that we would achieve the compliance. So with specifically in this committee charter, what you will see here is that we did some additions to the charter, to this charter. Nothing really came out. It's just more additions or clarifications. And the additions really gets into talking about our experience. Expanded the experience qualifications that we broke them down from a minimum to a desired. Also included an appointment section and how that works, as well as the meeting section that was expanded to one, not only incorporate the policy that we just discussed here a few minutes ago, but also there's been some addition to attendance of the meeting at this meeting by county employees. Also, in terms of clarifications, what you'll see throughout is, instead of just saying county auditor, now making a reference to the Office of County Auditor references. And then the other thing is with clarifying that the committee is providing, there was a clarification there, the committee providing input to the county manager funds to support the Office of County Auditor function. And also attached to the charter is an annual meeting planner. This is to help the committee to see what items are going to come before the committee at an annual glance, see the different things that are actually tied back to the committee's roles and responsibilities. So that's one of the things a peer reviewer is going to check, is to make sure that that the committee is fulfilling its role and tying things back to the charter. So by having that annual meeting planner, you'll see that. But there was one duplicative thing in there about the Office of County Auditor annual report that we'll talk about later on the agenda. But that was also the only thing that was removed was the duplicate reference that was located into the annual meeting planner. And having said that, if there are any questions, I'm happy to take those.
I have questions on this one too, but I don't want to hog the floor.
No, that's what you're here for. So please go ahead.
I just on this part C, primary duties and responsibilities. So it reads, normally in a charter, you have to say who's responsible for what, which this reads as the committee. Everybody on this committee is responsible, but some of these are not. It's not clear to me that how the committee has or will operate on some of these. But I'll go item by item. So subpoint B5, reporting on problems or problem areas. That is very. I have trouble understanding what is inclusive of that and where the boundaries lie on problem or problems. Are we talking specifically about the audits? Are we talking about raising new, like we think this group should be audited? Are we talking about the performance of the auditor? Because there's other points in here. I feel like the word problem is extremely general and rather difficult to nail down exactly what that responsibility means for this committee. If somebody were to come and say, Okay. Prove that you've been dealt with with problems, would be like, look at John's, you know, notes. He's, but to me, that word is just too vague from the standpoint of a charter. In terms of what do you mean by problem areas? Can we be more specific about what would you like to know? What would we be judged by in terms of a performance metric if we are trying to decide how well we're doing as a committee? So I'll just pause. Do you want to pause for discussion?
Yeah, I will say that my reading, like, and I agree, it would be an assumption based on the words that are written, was problems with respect to like the office of the county auditor, the work plan, or the work of auditor. I am not, I don't need to be limited to that if people think there are other things that we should be reporting problems related to, but that, at least when I was reviewing it, that was my interpretation.
I just feel like that can be spelled out.
Specified, yeah, and like I think I'd be happy to include an amendment to add that if the audit work plan, the office of the county auditor, there are other specific areas of problems we would want to include if we're specifying.
I think it would, in my opinion, I think this might be fixed, not only that, but in addition to it, if there were, as part of the annual financial audit, if there were disagreements between management and the external auditors, or even with the Office of County Auditor. So if there is a management disagreement, you know, we could, like, maybe that could be something that could be clarified in here is a.
I don't have specific things in mind. It's just that the range of things I've heard discussed over the last couple of years is, it's not total, it's not everything, but it also is more than, for example, just the review of the system. And in fact, essentially, this is inclusive of everything in this list. Right?
Yeah.
Because everything in this list is a responsibility and primary duty. So if there's problems in any of these areas, you would think
Right.
that would be, so it's nested inside something it's actually talking about. Potential
So would
problems.
you think that something like a, you know, kind of speaking out of turn, but as a suggestion.
It's a collaborative concept.
So would you suggest like a language saying, reporting to the county board or board members challenges and meeting audit committee responsibilities as outlined in the charter?
Possibly, but it feels like it should be a separate item. In other words, you can reference problems and problems, say items under C, which are the responsibilities. So yes, it's a responsibility, but it feels like it's a separate piece of this entire list in C. So in other words, list the responsibilities, and then there's a separate, maybe an item D that says, relative to everything we just talked about, essentially, we also have the responsibility to comment on problems. So that it's not kind of part of the list of affirmative things we're doing, but it's sort of a double check on those things. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Is it becoming like D?
I think
I
that,
think
yeah,
that's the proposal.
yes.
Could it be part of A, or is it better to be separate? Sort of more generally.
Oh, yeah, I could see that.
I think it's a separate responsibility because a charter has to say who is responsible for what, and exactly what you're supposed to be doing. So I would not, I think A is mostly background. It's more of a mission statement, background statement, whereas this is an actual responsibility.
This would be adding a part D.
I think it'd be better as a D.
Okay.
Next. On number 6 there, VI, providing input on funds needed to support OCA. I'm not sure, are we providing input? Are we responding to a recommendation for a financial budget? Because I'm not aware that we get a budget handed to us and say, how does this look to you for this particular office? As opposed to, well, like just happened with the housing program, we'd like to, we could use more money and then we could do this and hire this. And in even with other county auditors, it's usually them coming and saying, I'm gonna need some additional funding. I want to hire interns, or I want to upgrade my system or something like that. So it is providing input, but to me, this element sounds a lot more like we're originating a budget item rather than responding to a budget item or reviewing a budget item. And again, I go back to, if I'm being asked, how did you perform your responsibilities? That to me is a much more affirmative action to take than we are, we're presented with budget proposals and we respond to them. We review those.
Talking about item 6, Mark. C6.
I mean, feel free to disagree. I'm just like kind of thinking through this because I don't really know.
Could it be as simple as, when requested, provide those budgets?
Well, that's the question, right? Because this is much more active voice than that. This is, we are taking action. We've decided we need this, that, and the other thing for the budget, as opposed to, responding to budget requests from OCA or by the county board for OCA or something like that. So I'm just asking the question of which really is it? Are we making recommendations or are we responding to recommendations?
What I've seen in other audit committee charters is that, the audit committee would have the ability to the extent of as your execution financial statement audit, or it's audits that you see that are coming from the office county auditor, or if there is some emerging issue that there's language in a charter that says that the committee has authority that has a budget to execute when they are seeing things that need to be done. And I don't know how it works here within the county, if you would have a committee for this that would have a budget. But, so it would be some of that language. I've seen it like that in other charters, but it doesn't exist here. But maybe that could be something to consider.
I think I'm kind of torn because I think, just thinking about the last 2 years, like we've discussed the need for what level of staffing for the auditor's office is, freezing 1 or 2 of the assistant auditor positions going to be okay. And what do we think about that? And so I don't think that's not providing input on the funds needed, but I also do, in addition, agree that this kind of gives a more active voice to that. And so I'm wondering if there's just a smaller way to say, having insight or opinions that are shared, but not reviewing necessarily.
I think what bothers me here is the concept of funds, because this committee does not make funds recommendations that I've ever. We do talk about personnel. We do talk about we need an upgraded computer system or software system, but we don't say, and we want you to spend $100,000 on, or and we recommend X amount of dollars for it. So I do.
Resources feel better. Priorities.
Yeah, resources. I think resources needed to do the work is inclusive potentially of funding, but also includes much, less burden on us to be cognizant of all the budget that's in the county and making a dollar recommendation. As we just heard in the discussion on the housing.
Yeah.
We're not saying, oh, well, let's run you $50,000 because you'll need that. But we'll make a proposal and let us know. And then we'll consider, how that works. So I would probably be more comfortable with resources than funds.
That's perfectly fine by me. Does anyone have any issues with that?
The only alternative I had is somehow moving that concept up into one as part of the review of the annual audit plan. It's kind of built into, do you have the resources you need? Do we think OCA has the resources it needs given its planned audit plan or priority? So either change it to resources or see if it's a natural extension of one.
I think in the time I've been here or been on the community, there's been turnover obviously in that office, and previous county auditors came in and made requests for things like interns. That it was partly to build a pipeline in that person's opinion, as well as to complete some of the work. So I don't think it's totally inclusive of just the audit work that we're reviewing on an annual or semi-annual basis. I think it sometimes is, wow, we need an assistant county auditor. We need, resources for this group that could be a number of things. And it might be preparing for future work as opposed to just reviewing the annual plan in a given year. That is part of what they do, but they do other things.
Other committee members have opinions?
But I'm not averse to, I mean, I don't, it's just, the way that I think
It's a
of
fair
it. but-
point.
John?
I don't know that I have an opinion directly on point to your comment, but are we ready for other discussion as well in this section?
I think we're working through Luann's
Okay.
first.
Okay.
And
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure I completely understand your point, but I'm certainly not disagreeing.
Okay. Well, I mean, essentially it comes down to using the word funds when we don't really do input and recommendations on dollar amounts. We don't say spend extra dollars.
We're not sitting here with the budget book
Right.
going through or the office budget saying, well,
That's not
of
enough
this
for
to 100.
this. Let's or let's move
Well,
this over here. We don't care.
I mean, one way you could possibly skin the cat for all of this is,
We don't skin cats.
okay, right, that's not.
So
what I'm-
Apologies. Go ahead. Please, go right ahead.
Yes, okay. So at Romans 1C, I mean, we say the committee's primary duties and responsibilities shall be as follows. We could say may include as opposed to shall be. And that would still give us license to comment. And I've made comments from time to time that I think with the OCA is under-resourced, or that, there should be, another staffer or something. So, I mean, I think it's certainly not, in my view, unreasonable for us to comment on really anything about what this function does or how we may each individually envision it.
I lean towards changing funds to resources as
That'd be fine.
my preferred
Yeah, I think that's good.
solution.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Can we change input to feedback? Okay.
sure. That works for me as well. Let me just add that to my. Okay, that's good by me. Next,
Okay, number 12, XII. I mean, I'm not aware of having ever participated in a written performance assessment, but I'm not arguing it shouldn't be done. I'm just wondering who has primary responsibility for this? Because again, this fits under the entire committee's responsibility, and I'm just asking, is that actually the case? Or does a written performance assessment come from manager or with input from or with feedback from? So I just don't know whether that's the function of the committee.
the county auditor's performance review is handled by the board directly. And to me, at least, the operative phrase within this was as requested by the county board. I don't know that the county board has thus, certainly not in my time on the county board, made that request. But I think that, like you said, there's been a lot of turnover. And so I can envision a point where once things are a bit more stable, we would be interested in soliciting feedback from committee members on performance. I think it just hasn't, that, you know, when we did performance reviews in December of last year, Wayne had been with us for less than 6 months. And, you know, so as requested was the operative term for me there. But you know, if others are uncomfortable with that, I think we could amend.
I'm not uncomfortable with
Yeah.
it. I'm just wondering if there needs to be a leadership role assigned to this for responsibility. Because if you're the county board, and then who is gonna do it if you're on the county
Right.
board? And you're asking, it's like
Yeah.
me and John and Bill, I mean.
Yeah.
you do it.
Is it rather than written performance assessment, it's feedback on the county
I
auditor's
think it's-
performance into the assessment you're writing? So does
Right.
it-
I was gonna say, I think written performance
Word of the day.
feedback makes more sense as requested, because I think my vision, if we were to make that request, would probably be we would send a handful of questions that are very directed and, you know, how did you think about this? What did you think of this? Rather than just saying, so guys, how'd you feel about that? Good or bad, everyone. But so I think changing assessment to feedback. And was there another change that would? Okay,
I think as requested is very important because we don't want to do anything that's going to trip
Exactly.
independence. Because
yeah,
that's a big piece of the peer review.
Okay, number 13, I just have a question about this, maintaining confidentiality, is that actually makes sense in a public meeting setting? What do we do that's confidential that isn't part of public record?
I think in the case of like a personnel or feedback on performance, that might be office.
So public,
It's individual.
if it's written and it's a personnel thing, that would be up to the county attorney whether that qualifies as a personnel record exemption from FOIA. I mean, we have also talked about whistleblower and the ways fraud and abuse, and sometimes there's confidentiality. That do we even have permission to go into closed session as this?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah,
so maybe,
I asked that question of Michelle when she was here. And
Yeah.
She was,
no. So I guess, do we actually?
well, I mean, you could say as required by legal requirements or something by law.
Yeah, I like that.
Because,
Well, we are a public body. And
Right.
we have public attendees and we're public facing.
Right. Yeah. I'm fine by saying as required by,
This may be required by law. Yeah, something.
so that before I write this down, my understanding is that we would be striking all the way issues that come before it and replacing that whole phrase with by law.
right, well, that's, yes, I would agree.
I just want to make sure I'm getting all of this down in writing so that we can make these changes.
That's it.
That's actually great. No, I appreciate
At
this.
the end of the responsibilities.
I think, you know, we were talking about the charter that we had, you know, was a starting place for an office that had an office and a committee that had never existed before. And we've learned a lot since then, and we've grown a lot and we've made progress. And so this is kind of we're evolving, and I believe the intention is that we revisit the charter annually so that we can keep evolving and incorporating. And it, you know, it is not a bad thing to have feedback here. I think it is helpful and shows engagement as well with the material, which is always good. So
actually though, that just raises another point. If you do, the term of the charter needs to be in. So if the charter is annual, it needs to say in here somewhere, this is an annual charter that will be revisited. It needs to specifically say that.
is it not? Annually, it's annually reviewing the board charge to determine if revisions are needed is the last after the confidentiality bullet point on the next, it's got bumped to the next
Just say
XIV.
that would actually say annual reviewing the audit. Or
Yeah, but the charters are, that's not the board charge. This is, the charter is the written document that says how we operate. So that's a separate element.
well, I mean, the board charges, like that term is just gonna go away. And it will just be an audit committee charter and then Office of County Auditor charter. So it'll be two charters. So like where it says annually reviewing, it should say annually reviewing the audit committee charter to determine if.
Oh,
changes-
okay.
So that would be a proposed change from annually reviewing the board charge to annually reviewing the audit committee charter.
Yes.
All right. Mr. Vice Staff.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. So I just have a couple of comments and questions and one suggestion. So I know that, and I'm happy to see that C 10 and 11 remain, which is receiving an annual report from the county's external auditor on the results of the financial statement audit. And 11, receiving an annual update regarding the results of the county's internal audit work. If I could be reminded when we last did that and when we next anticipate doing that?
January and January.
January and January. Okay. Okay, thank you.
That's with that table, the meeting planner, like it'll.
Oh, that's,
It shows,
Okay.
what's gonna have to happen is once this is finalized, I'll go back through that table
okay,
and it say, for this requirement, where is it done?
okay,
So that way we make sure we're not missing anything.
okay.
We can't present the external audit until we presented it to the board, which happens at the December board meeting.
Got it, okay. I do have one suggestion and I'll concede I haven't socialized this with anybody, but it would be my suggestion, and I'll make it in the form of a motion just for purposes of discussion. It's in the same vein as 10 and 11, and that would be to say, receiving an annual report from the Arlington County Public Schools internal audit function or internal auditor. And the reason why I say that is, you know, with APS getting, you know, a very hefty chunk of our budget in the 40 to 48% range, depending on how the, you know, the annual funding formula that we've had for so long ends up working on a particular year. I mean, it's a sizable portion of our budget, and yet for all sorts of reasons, you know, we take a very gingerly, hands-off, benign approach to what schools are doing. And at the same time, one thing that I have always heard about in the community, and including at the time I was an APS parent, and even now, is the theme of schools-county collaboration. And we do have, interestingly, on our county website, a whole page devoted to schools-county collaboration. And it talks about, you know, how we fund school nurses and crossing guards and so forth. So I think we're doing a lot that in terms of coordination, looking for synergies and so forth. But I do think on an annual basis that it would really be helpful for our audit committee to hear from the school's auditor. Now, they also have an audit committee. However, interestingly, it is a very inward-looking committee and lacks any official public or community members, if I'm not mistaken. And I know that various school board members over time have thought about more closely emulating us, but it hasn't quite happened yet. So that it would be my suggestion that we host the auditor on an annual basis. And maybe we pick a specific month of the year, maybe we don't. But I think it would really be helpful to have a conversation and hear from the auditor what they're working on. And likewise, we can take 10 or 15 minutes and let them know what we're working on. I think we do it in a spirit of collegiality and cooperation and information.
So I think it's a really good, our two auditors we have a quarterly cadence, right?
Oh, yeah, we
Roughly.
yeah.
Pretty, yeah, so we are
And the
staff.
EMF internal audit too.
Yeah. So that
Three
is
years.
ongoing. I think we would maybe want to move a little gingerly in how we word that, given that the boards are separate. And we have the power of the purse, and that's all we have. But I think we could say fight, or, the committee should ensure that the auditor is checking in, and it does go into our budget decisions and power the purse, but like, we don't have the authority on the county side of board to order the superintendent or anyone in their staff.
There is a little more authority, I think, than is commonly known in
Yeah.
terms of giving budget guidance, which we
can provide.
which we've refrained from doing. But that's another question. I mean, I think if we can couch it in, as an informational type of thing, that would be an opportunity. Again, if they come to us, it's a public meeting. And right now, there's just, there's not much sunlight shown on the school's audit function. And that's their baby, and they've constituted it the way they have been. But again, I just keep coming back to the fact that it's a common theme among the citizenry. It's a huge part of our budget. And I think as an annual informational session once a year, that it would be well received and very informative.
I'm directionally right there with you. I think my concern is over adding something to this audit committee charter now without having socialized with our peers on the school board, their audit staff, like just putting it in here feels like without any conversation whatsoever, feels like a really aggressive choice.
Madam Co-Chair, I understand your perspective. So let's start socializing.
Yeah, I think that's kind of.
And let's
Yeah,
see if let's socialize it with an eye towards hopefully getting it in next year.
yeah.
But have one in the meantime. Let's see if they're open to.
Right.
Because I remember Maria and Mark will remember, we did this in, I want to say, December of 2018, and we went to SciFax as a gesture to the school board. We went to SciFax and had the joint meeting then. And it was a very informative and engaging session. Never said a word about it.
It was very insightful, let me put it that way.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a great game plan. I think we have plenty of joint work to do. And so it's hard for me to imagine that such an invitation would be ill-received if it is an invitation. I think I could see
being overseen, because you said,
Well, we just put it in our charter, so now it's gotta happen. But no, I, you know,
Different styles.
it's different styles, different approaches.
But I mean, you know, I think one final point.
Yeah.
And I think we're in a good place on this is, you know, we do interact with separate constitutional officers on our audits. I mean, we've had the sheriff, and we've had the treasurer and perhaps other independently elected constitutional officers that are separately chartered. So, I mean, this is just a continuation of that theme to also host the school's auditor. And if a school board member wants to attend as they did in 2019, I would applaud that. Thank you.
No, thank you. I think that's a great insight to add to our.
The last question I have on this, and this really goes not just to the audit committee's charter, but to the Office of County Auditor's charter, is where in here does it provide any sort of obligation or suggestion for us to take input from the public? So, you know, there's 3 community members. We all have, you know, various ties and nexus to the public. Where is it said that, you know, we're interested in what the public is saying? Because obviously the 3 of us, you know, we don't look like Arlington, all of Arlington's public, and we can't necessarily, and we don't want to hold ourselves out necessarily as being spokespeople for the public, even though we're appointed by the board. So I'm just wondering how we accommodate that concern.
That's what we just talked about.
I was gonna say, yeah, so
Just talked about.
there's two kind of items that in our discussion of the review of the charter and charge came up to us. One was around, you know, the composition of the committee and how many members of the public should be here. You know, we have 3 of you plus the fact representative, like they're
Oh, yeah, the fact,
Yeah.
where is the fact rep?
she's unable
Yeah, she couldn't make it.
to join tonight.
Still the same person?
Don't.
Tell ask you, right? Yeah.
You know, and we kind of were not in a place to come to any sort of conclusion on the composition right now, as much as I guess similar to the school board audit contemplation that I think we wanted to put it on the table as a question for us to be mindful of, so that when we do review next year, if we decide we want more community members, like some sort of different number of people, to be thinking about that going into next year's review. Not because I think inherently we need more or different people, but it just is something that I think I hadn't, until we were reviewing it together in a meeting, I hadn't even really thought about what do I think is the right composition. And so that was one thing. And then I think the other thing is really there is no process at this point for public comment, community joining. You know, this is a public meeting and it's open to anyone, but our agenda doesn't have an element where, you know, as a standing item, we have public comment, and, you know, anyone's welcome to email either of us and we're happy to bring it to this, but like there's no standard process or procedure by which the general public can participate actively and like provide their input or insight. And so again, like we in that meeting were not able to immediately come up with the appropriate way to address public engagement in the audit committee, but we agreed that that needs to be addressed. And as part of a broader, I think the county board is looking at all of our commissions and advisory groups and everything about how do we kind of create some standardization so that expectations for any group are reasonably similar for how the public can participate.
I think that's an excellent point. And, you know, there's no reason why we couldn't have as a standing item on the agenda, public comment either at the beginning or the end. And, you know, maybe we have some rules, although perhaps quite not as onerous as some people think the county board's rules are for public comment. But, you know, but at the same time, I mean, we have recognized members of the public, either remote or in person. If they've raised their hands or want to be recognized to say something, you know.
Yeah.
We'd like to hear it, at least I would. So, I mean, I think we're very open to it. It's just a question of, do we codify it or regimentize it in some way? So I think that's a great idea, Matt.
Yeah, so and I don't know that we came to any kind of conclusion on what is the correct way to address this, as much as you have identified 2 additional areas of discussion. And, you know, I think we were really interested and open in hearing from members of the committee on, you know, is it, you know, we can have an unlimited number of people come at the end of the meeting, but we have to get through all of our business first. Is it, you know, I think that was more where I leaned, as opposed to having people, because they might want to provide comment on things that are discussed during the meeting. And if we discuss all of it, perhaps their questions are answered.
Right.
So that was the initial reaction, but very interested in general feedback and thoughts. And it doesn't have to be today necessarily either.
Right. Well, I mean, just from my perspective, I haven't formulated it either, but I'm pleased that we're talking about it, and I think we could have a, you know, maybe like 3 or 4 of us get together or something over the, you know, between now and the next meeting, and maybe come up with some bullet points or something. I think the other thing, though, is while we're on this topic, it would probably not be a bad idea for either of the co-chairs of the committee to publicly recognize those folks who are in the room beyond the committee, and also those at home who are listening, to the extent that you can tell who it is. And that way we'll have on the record, at least, at, you know, for every meeting, who else is participating either remotely or in person in our proceedings.
Yeah.
So could we find out who's sitting here? Why not implement it?
Sure, if you want to go ahead.
Sure. My name is Catriona Ayer. I'm a longtime Arlington County resident, and I am interested in, my professional background is in compliance and fraud risk, and do a lot of work in boards, and so I'm interested in learning more.
Thank you.
And John.
Oh, hey, okay. You know, you are so soft spoken. My aging ears don't pick up everything.
Jonathan is the deputy clerk of the
Right.
Arlington County Board.
We met at the fair, well, and before the fair. Yeah.
I am Barbara Keller. I'm also a longtime Arlington County resident, and I spent most of my career at GAO. So I'm very interested in.
Okay.
And then online, we have Suzanne Sundberg. I don't know if she wants to introduce herself. She would be welcome to, but
Suzanne, can you hear us?
she's been typing in the chat, so I don't know it.
Suzanne, she sent me a text saying that she couldn't view, she could hear but not view, that the screen was frozen.
I told her we were stuck on one slide.
That's why she thinks it's.
It wasn't frozen. It's really weird. She's typing again.
And is that it online?
SB is
SB.
surely.
Oh. Okay.
Surely.
Look up there.
Yeah.
I can hear you, but I have no microphone. Sorry. I am a 30+ year Arlington resident who has been active in civic life for many years. Thank you, Suzanne.
That's true.
Great. So, did you have any more
No.
charter related? Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I'm gonna go ahead and summarize the changes I have written down. And I will pass it along to you as well. So, let's start with, we are moving, 1C5. We are gonna strike that from this section where it currently is and insert it as 1D. While also, I believe, changing, I don't know that were we gonna edit the language of 5 at all?
It's gonna
Curious to know.
Problems
Make
with
up
the
things.
Okay. So with the language, reporting to the county board or board members on problems relating to fulfilling the duties and responsibilities in item 1C.
Put the word concerns instead of problem.
I'm fine with that, but is there any?
I'm fine with that. You could, you wouldn't need to say concerns or concerned areas. You could just say members on concerns.
Yes. Okay, and then from there, instead of providing input to the county manager on funds needed to support the OCA in advance of the proposed budget, we will have providing feedback to the county manager on resources needed to support the OCA in advance of the proposed budget. Instead of providing written performance assessment of the county auditor as requested by the county board, we will have providing written performance feedback of the county auditor as requested by the county board. Instead of maintaining confidentiality as required by issues that come before it, we will have maintaining confidentiality as required by the law. And instead of annually reviewing the board charge to determine if revisions are needed, we will have annually reviewing the audit committee charter to determine if revisions are needed. All right, go team.
This is a related change on the audit committee annual planner. It's on item 10 where it says annual review of audit charge. Should be annual review of audit charter.
Got it. And we'll have Mr. Scott go through so that aligns. Okay, with those amendments, I would like to make a motion to approve the audit committee charter as amended during this meeting, summarized just now. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? All right, all in favor of adopting as amended the audit committee charter, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And any abstentions? Excellent, that passes unanimously. Back to you, Mr. Auditor.
See, the screen's not frozen. It's
You
thawed out.
really have been.
Okay, on to the next charter. So this is now breaking out the separate Office of County Auditor Charter. And so talk about the additions and clarifications. So the additions are around the mission and vision statement, and which we did not have previously have. So we've included the mission and vision statement. We made significant additions to strengthening the independent section, as that's going to be a big focus of a peer review. So we wanted to get that more peer review ready. We've made some clarifications around scope and responsibilities, back to the funding to align with the audit committee charter, which will reflect those changes that we just discussed. And also the clarification around of the OCA references. The deletions that you will see are more of getting the document, getting it, because we started with the charge, so it was there was a lot of descriptive, prescriptive things in there that are more related to how we do audits, which are in our manual. So we've the charter did not have a spot for it, or didn't. It's really not the purpose of a charter, so we left that prescriptive information to be reflected in our current policies and procedure manual. And then the other piece is again, just making sure that the audit committee section is more, again, keeping it in the, it's aligned with what we just approved. So any changes that we just made to the audit committee charter, we'll make sure are reflected into the county auditor charter. So if there's any discussion, happens.
If super minor nits in the mission statement and vision, I would actually strike we and put the office.
Where are you saying?
This is the charge from, in the mission statement and in the vision statement, it slips in the second sentences of each, the word we. And I just think you stay with the office or the function.
Okay, is committed.
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
just avoid the.
Makes sense.
And actually, I have one, not, my just a broader kind of intersecting with what John said earlier. If we're gonna get at public input, it hits both. Like your office and then the committee, so we have to be thoughtful, whatever. Is it more public input on the results of your findings or your work plan, or is it, because this is kind of we review in a way, so I just want to make sure we're thoughtful about where the right point is, or multiple points for that. Does that make sense?
So when you say public input on just.
So we were just talking about public input at the committee level, but the nature of what the committee does. We review your work, we have discussed, so where does it really?
Is there an additional interest in either requiring or describing the type of public engagement and input that the Office of County Auditor does, separate and apart from the public engagement and input that the audit committee would do?
Like your open door Mondays.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll talk about
Just a thought, just a point.
Yeah. That's your
So I'll wait until so Wayne, so I guess two things. Have you appeared before the Civic Federation or any other community group to talk about what you do and what OCA's all about? Yeah.
Oka.
I never heard of
Oka. Oh, whoa.
I like it.
No, we have.
Do the Oka Polka.
Oh my gosh.
Stay focused, guys.
So no, we have not gone into just kind of who we are or done like any type of a roadshow like that. We have been in touch to the extent when we're on an audit of reaching out to interests, whether it's a committee or,
So on a more targeted basis.
yeah, it's been,
Okay.
yeah. So like, I mean, and I'll talk about that in a second on community benefit. But even like on the STAR program, there were efforts made to reach out to one of the, with the Transportation Disability Committee on housing grants. I was very new, which I didn't reach out to anyone on that, but it's like, that is something that we've talked about to the extent that when we're announcing audits, where is there an intersection with a particular commission or a committee to do that, but there hasn't been anything. We're just meeting.
Okay, and I'm not suggesting that we be prescriptive in the least in terms of saying, you know, you gotta appear before CIVFED once a year or something
Right.
like that. But I do think, you know, to the extent that you're asked and are willing, you know, to come to CIVFED or go to the NAACP or go to any of our county advisory boards or commissions or whatever the case may be. I mean, I think people are interested in seeing you and
Right.
certainly understanding the function.
Sure.
So, and certainly. Right. So I mean, I would
Surely, come on.
view that as kind of a natural part of your job, honestly. And then beyond that, could you remind us how many times you've spoken before the county board at a board meeting?
Okay, so at the county board meetings, I did go October of last year to talk about the annual plan.
Okay.
I did that this past July as well.
Okay,
I am planning to go back in October.
okay,
Give an annual report on what the, to do an annual review of the 25 plan. So I'm going back there. So there's requirements of me to at least get there twice a year to the full board.
okay.
In an open session to talk about, kind of what I'm going to do and then what I've done.
Great. I think that's important as well. And I'm glad you recited those opportunities. Thank you.
Yes. And the other thing I just want to, as we were talking about, like in regards to public input, like with the function, I would just throw a little bit of caution out there in that because of this yellow book requirement of independence, so like if we go out there and start getting public input, so it's like if it's a public input on a audit, like help me scope an audit or draft an audit or commenting on an audit report, like that, I would rather make sure we talk with the county attorney's office first, because there could be some areas of where some independence could be compromised. Because like a draft audit report, for example, that draft audit report is it right now it sits under an exempt status from a FOIA perspective because it's a kind of an ongoing audit investigation. So there's a little bit of an exempt status. So we want to make sure that we're not going to do anything that could trip us into an area that could be, that could open up the door that someone could say, yeah, you're not fully independent if you're letting, people weigh in on your audit report before it's drafted. So we just have to be a little cautious about that. But now, is there some other public engagement where it's, here's what we drafted to do, and this is what the audits will look like? Like that in my head looks fine. But when it's like an ongoing audit, one to help us draft what an audit looks like and to comment on audit, I think that would be a very slippery slope to be in as an auditor.
Okay.
I would feel like, I would be honest, I would say I feel like my hands.
I think I get what you're saying. On the other hand, if Scott Broadback from Scott McCaffrey wanted to call you and say, hey, will you sit down for Q&A or a little interview? I mean, you'd probably be.
He did that.
Yeah.
Did you really?
They wrote a whole article about him
When was that?
last August,
Yeah,
September.
I think I was just finding out where
Yeah.
Catherine was.
I'm pretty sure we got the press request before he had even had his first day, and we were like, let's give him a month before we.
Who's the
Okay, so this-
least viewed on our own outlet?
That's- Oh, right, because I remember I was reading all the comments and I was.
Exactly. You were, you
I was
were.
reading the comments.
That's true.
Pointing them.
Oh.
Change that.
But yeah, and I would say, you know, we've been very clear that if he is invited by any groups, any community organizations, any of our other commissions, like we super encourage and support going and attending and engaging. And so I think it's more you know, a matter of time and sequence that I think it'll happen
Right.
now that we're in the work deeply. So yeah, I hope that's a little.
Does OCA have a press agent, not press agent, like public relations person, like the government does, where you get a request for an interview and then depending on the source, you might ask for questions in advance?
We give them our, we have our policy and communications manager.
Like many things in the county, we have a leading.
We have a person within the county board office that does it for all county board office people, and since the audit function.
So you have support for them to be able to say, you need to run that through this person?
Yes, yeah. And
Diana,
we have,
Because I think that's very important for the independents.
Facebook.
yeah.
Where's Brian?
And, you know, we're always able to pull in the CAPE team if things are really critically important. So, CAPE being our communications and public engagement team that sits under Mr. Manager and not under us. So I hope they feel supported on the press and comms side of the aisle, but
I think it might be useful for the structure, the notion that, you know, there might be more than just two of us someday, and it would be good to have a policy in our.
it's normal. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's certainly incentive these days for people to take information and use it in ways you might not have intended it to be used.
Yeah.
Well, I would actually just ask on that point, you know, you did the STAR audit, which we appreciated. And I think, did you receive requests from any outside parties to do a briefing on that? I think you
We did
did.
a statement.
To do a
You
briefing.
did, no, a statement, like, for example, any of the advisory committees that focus on transportation. I mean, to my mind, I think that would be, I'm not suggesting you do it, but if the auditor got a request from the Transportation Commission or from, you know, any of my advisory committees to come and talk about the findings, I think that would be a great thing to have happen rather than to have someone translate it. Because he did all the, you know, and Shirley did all the work. So
Well, and in fact, I thought you did meet with the Disabilities Advisory Commission. Did you not?
Fall back. Kept trying to reach out.
Okay. Yeah, that would be an important connection to make.
Yeah.
Maybe try to follow up on that again.
Okay, to bring it back to the Office of County Auditor Charter.
I have a really substantive change on page 6.
Okay.
There's an S.
There's an S missing.
Your audit processes. At the bottom, says the county auditor is responsible for drafting, implementing, and adhering to audit administrative processes regarding all audits or all audit work, one or the other.
You're doing the red
Where
line.
exactly are you reading?
It's page 5, actually,
Oh.
and it's the bolded heading audit processes, and it's the second line of text within that, first sentence, second line.
Audit
all
processes?
Yeah, for me, it's page 6 on the bottom, but I have the red line version.
Oh, I have the
That's why
clean
you have a
version
clean
up,
version
yeah.
up.
Oh.
Okay.
You see
Yeah.
it.
My substantive change generated a lot of words.
Okay, so audits or audit work, I have no preference whatsoever between those two.
You had the word work there. or in the red line, so you either
Ah.
keep the word work or. Yes. Very simple.
This is the hardest decision we will make today. Audit work. Okay, great.
We don't have to vote on that.
Fine. Okay, so we have from Bill striking the "we" in the mission and vision and just saying the Office of County Auditor. And from Maria, we have audit work in the audit process section.
Another thing, which is again, determined the charter is not specified. Does say, the peer reviews occur every 3 years, so it seems like a charter revision or update or reconsideration every 3 years following
Is,
this.
if it doesn't say it, it will say, I think it's best to do it.
Okay.
Because a lot of things can change. You'd be surprised what will happen. So we'll make sure there's
I've never seen a charter shorter than 5 years. That's just
Oh,
like,
yeah,
really,
no.
this is like,
best.
you should do it every year.
We recommend updating policies and procedures every year. We follow that practice too.
Yes. I would just.
We have to follow what we preach.
Everybody complains about the recommendation of auditors. The charter will be whatever that other language was.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right, but
Just realized.
a review doesn't mean changing barely. Let's see, where would we put a sentence about that? Scope and responsibility? A whole separate section?
Number 6.
Number 6 under. No, wait.
Under scope and responsibility.
Well, but that's under examples of performance audit objectives. Right? So
That final section.
I think we just add a final section that says charter review.
It's minutes.
We're halfway through the agenda, I'm sure.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we've got things from the June agenda that didn't get covered that are on here.
We're trying, okay. Are there other changes? Because I think that leaves us at only 3 changes, and I think I would feel comfortable adopting.
I've lost.
I so move.
Mark has moved as amended.
Yes, as amended, as amended.
Okay, great. Is there a second? Susan has seconded. All in favor of adopting the Office of County Auditor Charter as amended that we have discussed here, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention?
Neither, but I do have. And that is, I do think for next year, when I've thought about this a little more, I do think that there needs to be something in the county auditor's work charge somewhere, and perhaps in the audit committee's charge, that really does speak more fulsomely to public input, public feedback, solicitation of ideas from the public. I mean, you know, even though we're a public body, you know, I think a lot of what we have been doing is, you know, it's generated by us, and then it goes forward, as opposed to emanating from the grassroots, emanating from the public. And, you know, I'll at the same time, I will admit that back with some of your predecessors, Wayne, that, you know, there was such a, there was a lot of feedback that was given through a variety of ways, whether it was actively solicited or not. and then there became such a huge backlog of audits. You know, we were going to audit the bids and we were going to audit this group and that group and so forth. And so I think that led to some frustration and unreasonable expectations from people that, okay, just because somebody suggested an audit doesn't mean we're going to have it. But at the same time, it got put on the audit horizon. So there was a community feeling, I think, to some degree that, okay, you know, someday we're going to get to all 25 of these things.
It's on the list. It's gonna happen.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I remember, you know, Jay and I had a lot, you know, former board member Jay Facette and I had a lot of discussions about, okay, these have been suggested. What are we going to cut? What are we going to go forward with? And, you know, it was an ongoing iterative process. So I'm not suggesting we necessarily go back to that and develop a giant wish list. But at the same time, I do think we need to send signals to the public that what we're doing has its genesis in what, not only what we feel are appropriate items to examine, but that are also from the public as well.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I think that's well taken. I don't want to be short about it, but we are already at time. We've got a lot of substance left here, so I'm gonna go ahead and just say, let's move forward, and that'll be something we continue to talk about.
Yep. Thank you.
Back to you, Mr. Scott.
Okay. All righty. So I believe what's up here is just an update as to kind of what are some of the activities that are underway with regards to the current work plan. And so without further ado, I'm just gonna go ahead and just jump straight into this real quickly. Some audits I'll go into a little bit of a deeper dive, such as community benefits, because I know that's what some folks are going to want to hear about. But as you can see here, this is just an annual glance of all of the audits that are scheduled through the remainder of the year. You will see with the community benefits, that was a carryover from the fiscal year 2025 plan. That audit is still underway. I know we'll talk about kind of how that audit was scoped and what we're looking at within that particular audit. We do have another audit that was just recently announced around the IT enterprise architecture infrastructure. I'll talk about that one, but you can see this is a glance of what's going to occur throughout the year between the follow-up audits, when we talk about audit infrastructure, those are the policies and procedures and templates and things that we use that's the engine to run the function. So that will just be ongoing. And then you will see how towards in 2026 when we'll begin the planning piece of the 27 audit. Going into community benefits. So as I said, the community benefits audit, that was an audit that we initiated in April of this particular year. Shirley and I have been learning a lot about community benefits. Where we stand with that particular audit is that we're closing up we're on the back end of finishing up our field work. We've actually started drafting the report, at least some of the overview section and just kind of the background sections. And we actually have that with CPHD as we speak for their technical review. The audit itself was focused into kind of looking at a couple of areas. One, how we scope the audit. Let me just say this off the bat. We have learned so much about community benefits. This will not be the only community benefit audit that will be done. We've learned that there are many different areas that could be focused in on, but where we scoped this audit was really to be from the point of when the board approves a site plan with said community benefit conditions. So taking a look at the process of making sure that those community benefits, how were they tracked? How are they implemented? How are they monitored going forward? And in that vein, we did speak with, we've been working with CPHD, DES, and DPR, and we also met with the Planning Commission on that particular phase of the audit. Another phase that we've been in and we're knee deep into is we've selected 8 site plans. And in those site plans, we wanted to make sure they were completed site plans. So we did go back to and determining which ones we wanted to sample. So we went back as far as 2014 to pick up within that, the 8 site plan. So we wanted to make sure things that were completed, because ultimately what we want to make sure is that how the benefits, the community benefits were implemented and monitored going forward. So essentially, what was agreed to, did we get it at the right quality, the right price, and what have you? So we wanted to make sure that we could see that by using completed site plans. The other piece of this too, in our 8 site plans, we wanted to make sure that we had a good mix of community benefits. So that 8 is giving us a broad range of all of the community benefits that are there, from affordable housing to open space, sustainable design, transportation, public facilities. So we're seeing kind of all of those benefits throughout. The other part here is that we've been working with civic associations and meeting with civic associations. I believe there's a total of 15 civic associations that cross over into those 8 site plans. So some of the site plans, the civic association is, they are where the site is actually located, but then we're also talking with the adjacent civic associations around those particular sites. That's been very helpful. We've been learning quite a bit. We've been getting some feedback that we think that will help shape some of our recommendations. So the meetings have been going very well. We still need to reach out, or Shirley has done a terrific job with reaching out to a lot of them. We've been working with the CIDFED folks to help us to get to these individuals. So Nick and Jacqueline have been helpful as well of getting us meetings set up and scheduled. So that's been going very well. In terms of where we stand, we are pushing hard to get through this by mid-November for a report release, and with the hope that we would have this to discussion at the December meeting. Shirley, is there anything, because I know I've been rambling fast, is there anything that I left out?
So you're taking pictures of the timeline. This audit is taking longer than thought it was going to. And
That's understandable.
there are reasons.
Yeah. For sure.
I appreciate that, John.
I know that one of the challenges you identified at the beginning, and that has been conceded by the manager, is that our data isn't the best. I mean, in terms of online search capability and that type of thing. I mean, do you feel that, like, I mean, because you're going back into these old site plans, but I'm curious about like how you're dealing with the kind of the research and technology intersection, and whether you envision a day when somebody in Alcova Heights or Forest Glen, can maybe search and say, okay, we've had 3 site plans in our civic association over the last 5 years. I'd like to be refreshed as to what those community benefits are. Is it a vest pocket park? Is it a community meeting room in the lower level of an apartment building? That type of thing. Because at the end of the day, these community benefits are for the community, and yet the community is often oblivious to what has been voted on by the board.
As I was saying, that this is why those meetings have been very insightful, because it's giving us things and ideas to help us shape recommendations. So that's been helpful. So I don't want to really comment exactly, kind of who said what and what we're
Sure.
kind of the conclusions, because we're still working that through. But the feedback that we're getting is helping us greatly.
Right.
And the CPHD team has been very responsive, and when we're looking for something to helping us to get us where we. Any other questions? I'm sorry, I've just worked with the clock. Okay. If not, I will.
We'll have plenty of time when the report. is
Yes. And this is just the two audits. I've just mentioned the enterprise architecture governance audit, which is underway. It's got two main focuses. One, kind of looking at our governance structure. So this is really how do we make sure that we have a countywide enterprise approach to acquiring and decommissioning technology so that we're not, we're avoiding that redundancy risk or we're avoiding any type of shadow IT risk, but also so that the governance piece is going to is the process design, asset management, and procurement is looking for the effectiveness of making sure that we have the right controls in place. The business continuity workforce planning, we're in a pre-planning stage. Shirley has done some research and getting some of the data to help us scope that particular audit. Just some of the infrastructure things that are underway. Again, we're continuing. This is the engine. So we're changing the tires on the car as we're driving it. So we're putting things in place. When Shirley came on, she came on with some great ideas of tools and job aids and templates that we should put into place. But again, these are the things that are going to help us from that peer review perspective.
Wayne,
Yes.
could you go back 2 slides to your bottom entry? That one, yeah, business continuity workforce planning. Could you just briefly summarize the thrust of that?
That is, it's like, how do we make sure, kind of looking across the county, like succession planning, essentially, is how do we make sure that, how are we as a county preparing for when there's turnover or when someone is about to either retire or go out on medical leave, like, do we have the infrastructure in place to have someone to be the acting or interim until a permanent is made? So that audit is making sure that we have across the county that we have a process and a procedure for doing such.
Okay, that strikes me as an important task, but I'm just wondering like how well you're situated to really do that and whether it might be, whether you might need like some outside management consulting or expertise that goes beyond your resources.
And we're planning, we're in a pre-planning. So, and that's something that we'll have to talk about internally about, like, to the extent that we feel like we need that resource. Then if we need to have that expertise because we lack that skill set.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you.
So, yeah. So this is a report that was actually scheduled for June that I want to get through. So it's going to come back in December anyway. It's coming back. But but I want to keep it on there's a strategy for keeping it on a June, December timeframe. But what this is that you have in your materials a detail of all of the open audit recommendations that we have underway. And as we complete audits, the follow-up audits or close out the audit findings, they will get removed from the list. So this actually reflects so that's why you don't see star on here. So when this comes back in December, because it's going to, would prefer to keep it on the June, December timeframe. So when this comes back, you'll see star will be added to this as the open audit recommendations. And hopefully the police over time will come off by then. But this is just an annual report that you can see. At least there's a full inventory of all open audit recommendations. And again, this was something that is done in compliance with the audit committee charter that sees at least twice a year what is open and where things stand, because the report will also show what's the tentative plan corrective action date, which guides when we come in to do the public work. Annual review of the fiscal year 25 work plan accomplishments. So this will be the same report that will be shared with the county board in an open session. So what this is showing is just kind of like for the fiscal year 25. So as a reminder, it was a shorter plan year because of you coming on. So it started on October versus July. It was approved in October. The plan was focused on getting closure to some of the prior audit work that was done. So we wanted to make sure that there was a handoff between what the prior county auditors had done. So not to just ignore what they had done. So it was looking at that audit horizon list, bringing audits from that horizon list over the performance audits. So the audits that came over for that particular year, so like community benefits, housing grants, STAR, they were audits that were all previously on the audit horizon list. And also a big focus was there were so many follow-up audits. We wanted to make sure that there was some audit activity to close out the various audits that were previously completed by county auditors.
There were recommendations back to 2018
Yes.
that had not been closed out. Even if they had been accomplished, no one had ever gone back to say, we're good now. So just want to highlight that.
Yes. And so these were the 3 performance audits that were listed. As you can see, 2 of them are complete. The one carryover community benefits, listing the dates that the reports were issued and when they are also planned for follow-up. Smile for the camera. Did you get it? It's in your materials on the county website.
No, I know.
Okay. Okay.
I want instant gratification.
Okay.
Just want it now.
Follow-up audits, as Maureen was just saying, there was a lot of audits that were there. There were a total of 22 open recommendations. 17, I believe, have been closed. So we still have a few open. So those audits will continue to stay on the list and we'll see those through this particular year. Those audit reports are also available on the county website. In terms of just kind of administrative changes, yay, Shirley has arrived. That's why community benefit, what's that? No, it's not.
Yeah. Well.
That's why I waited for Shirley to get here before we did community benefits.
Shirley, are you gonna field an audit committee softball team? Isn't that your sport? Or is it baseball?
The crossover.
Are you offering?
Some other administrative changes, again, just working on our policy manual to get that in shape to be in compliance with generally accepted government auditing standards. And as I previously mentioned, we've implemented a number of job aids and tools to help us to do the work, document the work, our working paper format, broad risk assessments, internal control assessment matrices, audit planning matrices. So we've got a lot of these documents put into place, which will be key elements that will be used for peer review. I believe
You have a typo, I
oh,
think.
really?
You're hiding it.
How critical is this typo, John?
You tell me it says implemented job aids and tools, AIDS, as if to connote a person as opposed to inanimate assistance. Okay, all right.
All right, we'll note that.
We'll fix that.
Keep it going.
Okay. That's it for me.
Okay, all right.
That's it for me. Thank you. Good night.
All right, questions or any follow-up from the committee? Okay, any miscellaneous items, anything? Speak now or hold your peace until at least December. All right, well, with that, our next meeting is December 11th, 4:30 p.m. We're going to, I think, update the meeting calendar invite so that there's clarity on the 4 versus 4:30 issue. But
Yeah.
thank you all for being here. Thank you for your engagement and time and diligence. And I would move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Great, without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got through. It's only, I was worried it was gonna be a lot longer. It's 15 minutes.
Thank you.
I mean,
Yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you too.
Yeah, and.
Okay, right.
To go, you
Yeah.
classes to go on.
Right.
There's nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing more time going on.
Issue.
Yeah, I think the board is starting to, I might find it a little bit too militant perhaps, so it's fine. Let's keep it going.
It's cool. I mean, that-
Yeah. It's good though. No, and thanks for coming.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have one error in regards to the whole.
Okay.
Yeah.